Welcome back to Making It Happen. And of course, we have here with us Scot Underwood from Skiatook, Oklahoma. Thank you for being with us, Scot. You know, I've admired you the past year that I've known you because of watching you, because I've even seen a lot of weight peel off of you.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about how it started, you know, because, I mean, I know you were
70 pounds. Yeah.
That just seems like a remarkable number. 570, and you've lost 320 pounds.
320 pounds.
So you're now down to
250.
250. That's like 2 or 3 people, isn't it?
Yes, it's 2 pretty good sized people.
Wow. So you brought your pants with you
Yes.
today, your overalls, and I saw a picture of that once before. But lift those up and let's see exactly how much that you have lost. Can you tell me what size these are?
Yes, these are size 80 is what I was wearing, between 70.
Size
8 and 80, yes.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's just phenomenal.
Yes.
I just can't even imagine. And how much would a pair of pants like this cost?
Well, they're about I think they charge by material because they're twice as high as the clothes I can buy now.
Yeah. So what do you mean, like?
Well, they're like $55, $65 just for a pair of pants. So.
Wow, that's remarkable. And then, let me see your belt real quick.
Yes.
And what did that make you feel like?
Well, when I first started, after I seen how much I'd lost, and I would start showing my pants like that, the very first time I held those up, they definitely made me cry because I can't believe I got so big. And it just...
Because doesn't it just happen before you realize it? I mean,
yes.
I know myself, you know, I can gain 20 or 30 pounds and you thought,
yes.
How'd that happen?
It's just one day at a time, just the same way you lose it. It's hard to imagine how you could get so big, but every day you just get a little bigger and a little bigger. And
let's open up your jacket and let's see exactly. I mean, I was telling him last night over dinner at Zio's, you know, it's almost like it can't be real, you know. Did you make this whole thing up, Scot, or were you really 500 and some pounds?
I was 570 pounds.
That's just phenomenal. Well, have a seat, and we're just going to talk for a second. And you know, now I know we talked a little bit about this before, and because of the cycle of abuse, which, you know, is close to both of our hearts, but I just believe that a lot of, I don't know, you start in childhood, because you had told me that you were even bigger as a young boy than your younger brother.
Yeah, well, I have a brother that's 2 years older than me, and one of the first pictures that I got from my Aunt Bee shows I was 7 years old, and I was probably twice as big as my brother that was 2 years older than me, Billy.
Right.
Already as a young kid, so I've been large all my life, and it does stem from, you know, you as a kid you pick up all these, you can call them phobias or whatever you want. You get to feeling abandoned, you get to feeling rejected, and then you start figuring out some way to make yourself feel better, and usually food is people's most easiest friend. You know, it doesn't cause you any problems. It doesn't argue with you. You feel better because you have to eat to live, and so when you eat, you feel this comfort, and so whenever you feel like you need comfort, it's easy just to turn to a candy bar or whatever you can.
So now food was that way for you, but now it could have been drugs or it could have been alcohol.
Yes.
Did you use any of those things?
No. And now I grew up in a home where there was alcohol and drugs. My mom and dad got married when she was really young, and so I remember being just a little kid and being at parties. They would have wild parties, and of course I didn't really know. My mom and dad got divorced when I was 5, so you don't understand all that stuff. But when you're brought up in it, and you see it, and you see the now I can look back and I know how I got some of these problems, and the alcohol abuse and the drugs, and it's devastating to children and families, because people really don't know what they're doing to a little kid, because they're really living their life and they're not thinking about the child. And my mom was young, so you know she didn't know how to. She had 7 kids altogether, and she missed part of her childhood.
So you had 7 brothers and sisters?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, 6. I have 5 brothers and 1 sister, and,
Right.
and one of my brothers has already passed away, and my mom's passed away, and so has my dad also. But they growing up around I hate to just say my dad's side of the family, but they were the ones that were criminals, I guess you would say. People ask me if I'm kid to the Underwoods over here, and I said, well, are they criminals? And they say no. I said, well, I'm probably not kin to them then. And so that's how I grew up, and we learned a lot of actually evil things that the Bible says are foolishness and to stay away from. And so I just got kind of led down the path of watching my family need food and clothing and shelter, and that's how, even as a little kid, I remember going out and shooting birds and shooting squirrels and trying to find food for us, because we were very poor and we didn't have a lot of food, so we were hungry. So whenever you do get a chance to eat, you want to eat all you can. And the best times that we remember is going to my grandma's for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and it was just, we seen all this food, and it was like, this has got to be heaven. And so then we would just eat like pigs, because we knew it was going to be a long time before we got to get that again.
So now, do you think each one of the children, though, were eating as much as you did, and it just affected your body different, or?
Well, my brother that's 2 years older than me used to eat more than I did, and he's a little bitty skinny guy. Now, it's weird how some people can eat more and lose weight. Everybody knows somebody that's skinny, and you can't believe. Like, for example, we talked last night about the guy that won the Olympic swimmer last year was eating 10,000 calories a day, but he was working them off.
Right.
So even though he was eating a lot, he was doing stuff, and so he was keeping the calories burned off. But yes, we all in one form or another got some type of food problem, addiction, some addiction. All of us come up with something. So I just happened to be the biggest one. My brother that passed away, he was probably the next largest to me. But yes, we all did have some sort of problem because of our childhood abuse and not being trained. When I was, my daughter makes fun of me because I tell this story about when I was in the 3rd grade, I had a full-time job. But I really went to school, but then after school I would walk to a chicken ranch, and I would clean out chicken pens and water chickens and work till dark, and then I would come home and then do that every day and work all day on Saturday. And I was early on making money. It wasn't much, but I was making money to help feed us. And I remember stopping by the store, and I had to be 7, 8 years old, and buying food and bringing home for us to eat. And one of the times I remember, I always tell about my mom. I came in one day with some groceries. Imagine a 7-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid coming home with groceries for I still call them my family, even though they're my siblings. And I was so tired, I fell asleep. And when I woke up, they had ate everything except one bag of potato chips. And so my mom said, well, let's open the chips for Scott. So they said, no, we all want some. She goes, no, Scott worked, and he brought us food, and so he gets these. So she made me feel special, and even though that was years, it's been 40 years ago, now I still remember it, and she was honoring me as like a head of a household, even though I was 7 years old.
Wow. So, well, Scott, we need to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to hear more about Scott's journey, how he came through the abuse in his own life. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Of course, we have Scott here with us again. Scott, I want to go a little bit more into the abuse cycle, because I think that's what is so critical. There's so many people that don't understand why people are acting the way they're acting, why they go through depressing times, or why they drink too much, or why they beat their wives, or just on and on and on. And it all stems from getting stuck in childhood. Like you said earlier, you didn't even understand what was going on in your life, but it changed who you were inside. And so tell me, you know, what point do you think that began, now that you can look back and see? When do you think that actually began? Because I know you told me one story about was it your dad that had picked you up at school or something, and you watched as they were driving away, or as you were driving away. Do you remember that?
Well, that was the police, actually.
Oh, okay.
Whenever, because we was left home alone a lot of times, and so that's where the abandoned feeling comes in sometimes. Some of these things that people get in their lives, like if they feel like they're safe, if, for example, a divorce, it's easy to feel that you were part of the problem for the divorce. The child feels that they were part of the problem, and then they start feeling rejection. That, well, maybe they left because of me, or they don't like me, or they feel abandoned, and then they'll get a fear of being alone, or a fear of not having enough food to eat, or what are we going to do now? How are we going to make it? And so all these fears they get stuck with causes them to look for something to feel that need that they have in their life. And so then that opens up the doorway to demonic activity, where the devil says, well, here, eat this, you'll feel better. And then the next thing you know, you find yourself sitting here eating, and you don't know why you're eating. Mm-hmm. And you can open a bag of chips and you'll eat every one of them, and you'll still be hungry. And you'll see all these things. It's so hard to stop and look at it, but everybody has stopped themselves and said, why did I eat all that, or why did I do that?
Right.
And it will stem back to some basic youth problem that you had. That, for example, whenever the neighbors knew a lot of times that we were left by ourselves, and they'd called the police one day, and the police came over to the house, and I was cooking some food for us, and we got a knock on the door, and I went in. It was a policeman. So I said, well, just a minute. And I told him, I said, I'll get my mom. And she wasn't there, of course. So I went and told all of my brothers and sisters to hide. And so I went back in there, and I said, well, she went down to the neighbors to get some sugar. And so the policeman just kind of stood around for a little bit, and he went walking around. So I heard a noise, and so I went running in the back room to make sure everybody was still hiding, and they weren't. And so by the time I got back around the house, the policeman had all of my brothers and sisters loaded up in the car, and then he got me too and took us in, and we were put in, DHS, I guess, took us and put us in the home for a little while, and there was another time that we were actually. He kidnapped us after my mom and dad were divorced and took us into Canada.
Who, your dad?
My dad did.
Yeah.
And whenever they found him, they took us and they put us in an orphanage for a while. And so we felt, you feel rejection, and you feel alone and abandoned. And of course, when you're around new people all the time, you know how hard it is to go to a new school the first day, and how your peer pressure is so intimidating. Well, we lived like that almost every day. We was somewhere else, and so we had all these problems, and I had no idea that this was part of the thing that was driving me. And I would lose weight, and then I would gain it back, and then I would lose it again and gain it back and lose it again. And I reference it to like bailing water out of a sinking ship without fixing the holes.
Right.
You've got to find out where the holes are and fix them. And these holes that I had were from abuse and neglect as a child, and now that I see them, they started when I was a kid. The earliest I remember was like 4 years old, and being at a party, and they would get you to drink beer and stuff, mm-hmm. and so that's where I consider, and I know that's where it all came from, because now that I'm free from that, I'm not tempted by it. Like last night, you were saying, I don't want you to be tempted by this food. I'm not tempted by the food. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't have a aversion to I got to go eat, or I've got to go sneak something and eat it. And that's one of the things that comes along with, like bulimia or gluttony. Right. And we all know the Bible says, that we would prosper. But it actually says that prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. And it says the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty. And so it's easy to talk about the drunkard or the drugs, but it's hard to talk about people that overeat because you want to be nice to people because you see that they're big. But everybody that's big is big for a reason.
Right.
They have a problem stemming from their youth where they was abandoned or abused or sexually abused or beaten. There's something in there that they need to find out what happened to them so they can fix it.
Well, that's why I do the segment about push rewind. If we will go back to the root of what happened, what caused all of this to start in our lives to begin with. But that's the sad part. Nobody really, they don't stop to think, why is a person doing what they're doing? Why are they acting the way they're acting? Mm-hmm. And I've heard so many times people say, can't you just get over it? Yeah. So you got hurt when you were a child. Just get over it. But it's not that easy to get over, especially when you don't even know when it actually started. A lot of people just push that down and play like they're okay when they're not okay. And then we see someone gain 500 and some odd pounds, and the struggle that it must have been, though, for you to start out trying to lose that weight. Do you think you really knew what the problem was when you started out?
I didn't know what the problem was when I started out. I just knew, and this is what I tell everybody, if you need to sit down and write down a log, you need to say, okay, who am I? Why am I here? What is my reason to live? Do I have a reason to live? Right. Are you going to just go, is every day just going to be the same? Or are you just going to sit here and wait till Jesus comes back and takes you home? Or are you going to do something? In John 14 where Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you. If it were not so, I would have told you. The very last verse of that, Jesus said, so they'll know that I love the Father and He has given me commandments. That I do. Arise, go hence. So He's saying, get up and do something.
Right.
We've got to do something. So write down what your reason to live is. And then when you do that, you can see what happened. If I start gaining weight, I can go back and look and say, oh, I see I've been eating this. That's what's wrong. So if you'll sit down and say, okay, when I was a kid, what happened? Then, this happened. And then you can go back and you can reference that to what's going on in your life. Right now, when it rains or there's a thunderstorm, I can sleep like a baby. I so love rain and thunderstorms. And the reason was because whenever I was a kid and we was home alone, I was always so scared that we was going to get kidnapped by some criminals or something. I couldn't sleep. But anytime it rained, even though I was a kid, I knew the criminals wouldn't be out in the rain. So I could sleep like a baby. And that's the reason I love thunderstorms now.
Wow.
And that goes in everything that you just write down, all the things you love and all the things you hate. And then you can tie those back to something that happened in your life. And then you can start fixing the problems. Because just like you said, you can bury it and cover it up, but the truth will always come to the top sooner or later.
Yeah, that's true. We're going to have to take another quick commercial. When we get back, we're going to wrap this all up. Y'all don't want to miss this, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Okay, Scott, we've only got 2 or 3 minutes here. Let's you began to lose the weight when you got to what point?
Well, I weighed 570 is what my weight was.
Okay.
And I had my daughter, I wanted to take her on a trip someplace, and so we decided, everyone says, oh, take her to the Mall of America. Women love to shop and they love that. So she's actually 21 now, almost 22, but I tell everybody she's 12. And so we got on a plane and started towards the Mall of America, and I was so miserable that from the seats were so small that I took up my spot and hers, and I made her so uncomfortable too. So I knew right then, I've got to do something. And that's how I started, made up my mind that I wanted to live, and that I had a reason to live. And so I started, and that's before I knew all the things that were tied to it. Once I started losing weight, then I could see a difference, and I started working out at Sky Fitness and Wellbeing
here in Tulsa.
Here in Tulsa, and the people there are so great. They help me, and they want to help you. They want you to succeed. And I worked with a trainer. Marcia Pogue was my trainer. I worked with for probably close to 2 years, and I have the people are so helpful. They'll see. And how I met her is I was on a machine. I was just doing stuff on my own, and she saw me on the machine. She said, "Oh, you're doing that wrong," and so she just started helping me. So I feel God put us together. So, and I know she prays for me, and she wanted me also to succeed. Well, they write up a program for you. They can show you this is what you should eat and this is what you shouldn't eat. And now I eat 5 meals a day. I drink all the water I can. 75% of Americans here in America are dehydrated. We don't drink enough water. And that's one of the reasons. You have to flush those toxins out of your body. And if you don't, you can lose all the weight you want, and you've got to flush your system. And so there's several things like that they help you with, and they're so encouraging. Every day I'm there, somebody comes up to me and tells me, "You look great. I can't believe how great you look." And it's so they're so encouraging. And of course, now that I have gotten better, I still see myself as 570 pounds. It's hard to realize unless I see a picture of myself. It just doesn't seem like me.
Well, you're incredible. I'm so proud of you, what you've done. And it inspires me to lose another 10, 20 pounds, But
well, I give all honor and glory and power and praise to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because I could not have done any of this without Him.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Scott, for being here.
Thank you.
And for all of you, please tune in next week. We'll have another great guest for you. You don't want to miss this. We'll see you next time. Thanks.